Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Apostate. I was recently reminded of this verse that raised some questions for me as a believer. It seemed too imperfect to be from God. I'll show you the flaws and you can come to your own conclusions. Just a quick disclaimer, this isn't some kind of argument meant to disprove Islam. Islam was never proven to begin with. I'm just sharing my thoughts. I'll try to be as brief as I can so you don't doze off. Here's how the video is structured. I'll start by reading the verse in Arabic and English. Then I'll comment on the relevant context from Tafsir, the exegesis. Then I'll comment on Allah's weak arguments, and I'll wrap up with an example of Shiekh al-Arifi demonstrating how mythology and folklore can shape a person's mentality for the worse. The verse in question is verse 256 of Surah Al-Baqarah. The verse says, أَلَمْ تَرَ الَّذِي حَاجَّ إِبْرَاهِيمَ فِي رَبِّهِ أَنْ آتَاهُ اللَّهُ الْمُلْكَ إِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّ الَّذِي يُحْيِي وَيُمِيتُ قَالَ أَنَا أُحْيِي وَأُمِيتُ. Have you not considered the one who argued with Ibrahim about his Lord merely because Allah had given him kingship? When Ibrahim said, "My Lord is the one who gives life and causes death," he said, "I give life and cause death." قال إبراهيم فإن الله يأتي بالشمس من المشرق فأت بها من المغرب فبهت الذي كفر والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. Ibrahim said, "Indeed, Allah brings up the sun from the east, so bring it from the west." So the disbeliever was overwhelmed by astonishment. I'm sorry. The disbeliever was overwhelmed by astonishment, and Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people. I genuinely didn't mean to, but I couldn't help but laugh at how it was phrased in English. This translation says the disbeliever was utterly defeated. Another tafsir says dumbfounded. So in the story of Prophet Ibrahim, he came across a king called An-Namrud who claimed to be God. The Quran gives no more context. In fact, the Quran on its own, without the word of mouth like hadith, it doesn't explicitly say that the king claimed to be God. One could infer that he was mocking Ibrahim's God rather than claiming to be one, but I digress, that's not the point. Some tafsirs like Al-Muyassar and Al-Jalalain just mention the so-called debate and what happened in it. Some, like Ibn Kathir and Al-Qurtubi, mention that the king was a bad man who hoarded food from his people. Tafsir al-Baghawi and Al-Qurtubi say that scholars, of course, disagreed on the timing of this debate, and it could have happened after Ibrahim was jailed for smashing the idols that belonged to the worshippers. Watch this video for more. Ibrahim committed a hate crime when they were celebrating a religious holiday while they were gone. He smashed all their idols. Please don't follow in the footsteps of the prophets. Two other things I found noteworthy are that Tafsir ibn Kathir claims the king ruled for 400 years. And Al-Qurtubi says that the mean tyrant king was the first to crucify and chop off limbs, because that's an abhorrent thing. Right? Psst. Don't tell anyone, but the Quran explicitly allows both of those things. But Aladdin, the Quran only allowed it in context. Those people who should be nailed to a cross till they die or mutilated, they really deserve it. Literally, Allah says that... Shh. You're just digging a deeper hole for Islam, Habibi. Back to the story. So Ibrahim decides to have a debate with the king, An-Namrud. Ibrahim says, "My God, the real God, can give and end life." An-Namrud responds by bringing two prisoners who were sentenced to death. He killed one of them and let the other live, and he said, "Well, here you go, Ibrahim. I gave life to one and ended another." Let's just pause for a second. That's a nonsensical argument, and I mean by both Ibrahim and An-Namrud. Ibrahim demonstrated nothing by claiming that his God gives life and takes it. Where's the proof? That people live and die? Yeah, but what links that to his alleged God specifically? Nothing. Even if he had a more elaborate creationist argument, he did not prove at all that he is linked to the Creator in any way. And An-Namrud is arguing semantics. He didn't bring someone to life. There's no way he's taking the debate seriously. But even if An-Namrud thought Ibrahim had a good point and he gave a serious retort, Ibrahim could have pushed back and said, "That's not what I meant. You didn't bring life or give life." But instead, Ibrahim gave him an argument he could not refute, an argument that left him dumbfounded. He hit him with the old 1-2.
أقوى حجتين.
The finisher.
القاضية.
Wait, yeah, Sheikh, it's not your turn yet. Ibrahim said, my God brings the sun from the east, so how about you bring it from the west? That's it? That's the argument? Hey, you see how it's raining outside? Yeah. Well, my dad did that. He owns the weather station and he made it rain tonight. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. Oh, okay. Well, actually, I made it rain tonight. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. Well, then make it stop raining. But I... Wait a minute. How about you tell your dad to make it stop raining? Well, no, it doesn't work like that. He's very busy and you don't get to tell him what to do. Well, then I have no reason to believe you. What do you mean you don't believe me? My dad will make your life a living hell. My dad will burn your body to a crisp and then he's gonna...
هو القوي العظيم الجبار جل وعلا.
Did you get the point? A real human with half a brain would ask Ibrahim to demonstrate. All he did was point out a phenomenon that's been observed every single day. Every single day. Except in the North Pole, of course, but none of the prophets spoke about that. Can you imagine taking Ibrahim or Muhammad to the North Pole where the sun doesn't set for half a year? They might believe you were God. Doesn't Muhammad say that the sun sits beneath God's throne every night? So what happens in the North Pole? Anyway, Ibrahim changed nothing and yet he somehow won the debate. Ever heard of burden of proof or evidence? No. You see, when you start noticing these patterns in Islam, they're hard to miss. The enemies of Islam in these stories are often easy to hate. Evil, simple-minded, stubborn, downright stupid villains. The perfect fictional enemy. In fact, Namrud is called by some one of the first tyrant kings of Kuffar. Yeah, akhi, I would have done a better job at these debates. Who are these clowns giving us a bad rep? These stories always portray disbelievers as evil. It conditions Muslims to link the two things together, disbelief and evil. You want proof? Just look at how Muslims speak to apostates. And the heroes win in these fantastical and silly situations in ways that wouldn't really work today. For example, Ibrahim wouldn't be taken seriously in any formal debate. And by extension, neither would Allah. Just notice this pattern in a lot of the stories. A prophet would say something, like Prophet Muhammad would say something, and then someone would shout back, "You said the truth, O Prophet of Allah." And then they join Islam, and then everybody claps. It's worth reminding you that the story was told by Muhammad in the form of a verse in the Quran. Some details were told by people a couple hundred years after Muhammad's death, claiming he was the source. So is it more likely that Muhammad or his followers told a mythical story, or that Allah wrote the Quran, before creating the entire universe? Allah had all the time in the world to formulate an argument, and he thought to himself, yeah, this is going to make a great case for my existence. It almost sounds like one of those fights you have inside your head. I'm going to say this, and then he's going to say that, and I'm going to say this, and he's going to be destroyed. No wonder that's how most of these da'wah argument videos are titled. Kafir utterly destroyed with one challenge. I mean, come on. So what do I conclude about this verse? I believe that this is an insult to God, if it exists. If God thinks that this is adequate proof of his existence, he must be more deficient in mind and more irrationally emotional than the women he created. If God knew this sounds like a silly argument, then is he entrapping us? Either way, it's such an unbelievable story and a testament to the mythical nature of religion. People living hundreds of years, good versus evil, good guy wins, and so on. Now, why do I care about this story? Well, it's about the real world consequences. Here's an example. While I was looking up the story, I came across a 3-video series by Sheikh Muhammad al-Arifi. In the middle of the first video, when he brought up a Namrud, he had to go on a tangent about atheists and how atheism goes against fitrah. And fitrah is the word Islam uses to take credit for human nature and intuition. I don't know what fitrah he has, but somehow his intuition missed the absurdity of the story. And then he started talking about how mentally and spiritually disturbed atheists are. I'm not the one who cries of fear while he prays and thinks it's a virtue. I mean, check yourself, Sheikh. I'm not the one who justifies sex slavery with my superior fitrah, but what do I know? It's so clear that he's pressed about atheists that he dedicated half of his first video about Ibrahim's debate, to this rant about atheists.
والنمرود كان ملحدا، والإلحاد بالمناسبة أمر لا تقبله الفطرة.
He says even if the atheist looks happy and is living a happy life, he has moments of despair and sadness. He then quotes something a Muslim scholar said to prove it somehow. That's the Islamic narrative. This religion and so many of its followers not only presume how a disbeliever thinks, they assert it like it's a fact. No, even if they look happy, they're disturbed and miserable. Which, again, is ironic, coming from someone who thinks that the most perfect entity in existence is a self-obsessed God who will torture you if you don't sing his praises hard enough. My dad will burn your body to a crisp and then he's gonna... Does he have no self-awareness? No introspection? أفلا يتفكر? He also says that humans in their nature are slaves, and that's why people worship all sorts of things. Speak for yourself, ya Sheikh, and maybe your people. Don't project on us. You're a slave to a story, not even to God. So how does Islam get away with it? How does Islam manage to convince a lot of Muslims of this mentally disturbed evil kafir? By spoon-feeding children stories of fictional villains that fit the plot so well. Villains like Fir'aun, the Pharaoh, which one? I don't know, and Namrud.
ولذلك الملاحدة من أتباع النمرود.
It's clearly working. Just look at the comments. وفقك الله يا شيخ محمد ورعاك على فعل. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو. الله يبارك فيك يا شيخ ويطول عمرك ويجزيك وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته يا شيخ محمد العريفي. جزاك الله خيرا يا شيخنا الفاضل. No discussion, no questions, just repetitive praise and prayer. Doesn't that raise any red flags for you? So don't be like the people who don't ask questions, the people who haven't given the words of preachers any critical thought. As always, think critically and think for yourself.
الدارونية لن أتحدث عنهم. الدارونية أنا لا أتكلم عن الذين يقولون بنظرية داروين، أنا أتكلم عن الملاحدة. ولذلك الملاحدة من أتباع النمرود، والنمرود كان ملحدا، هذا صدره مضطرب وكان أمره فرطا مضطربا. هؤلاء هم أهل الاضطراب، هؤلاء لا تجد واحدا منهم يشعر براحة وطمأنينة في حياته، كلا، لكنه تمر به لحظات. هؤلاء لا يعيشون في طمأنينة ولا سعادة، لا تجد واحدا منهم مطمئنا في داخله ولا يعيش في سكينة، كلا، بل كما قال الله تعالى:
My dad will burn your body to a crisp and then he's gonna...
فبهت الذي كفر